Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. This is GENIX-JS, a YouTube channel dedicated to teaching you need to know to get started with front-end web development. So in the last video, we covered functions in JavaScript, and today's video we'll be looking at what we didn't look at in previous videos before we move on to the next concept. We'll be looking at string methods, we'll be looking at number methods, we'll be looking at other methods in JavaScript data types, and how we can manipulate strings, how we can manipulate arrays. We'll be looking at them in depth in this video. Let's get right into it. So the first thing I would want you to do, if you've not been following this series, I usually want you to open your VS Code. So there's a link in the description below to download VS Code, a code editor that is very useful and it's very easy for you to install. I'll leave the link in the description below. So I want you on Windows, click on Start, the Start button on your Windows key. If you're on Mac, click on the Spotlight search and type VS Code. So once you get that done, I'd love you to open a new window, right? So since this is the fourth video, we're going to be continuing from where we stopped, creating a new folder in our JavaScript folder. Alright, so here is the folder, saved it in desktop. The link to the codes, the GitHub and the Google Drive code is in the description below, so just get that installed. If you don't know how to use GitHub, I'll leave a link in the description to my very first video where I covered version control while we were building an HTML web page. So basically on my channel you have everything sorted out. Alright, so yeah, so this was where we stopped in the last video. We're going to be looking at concepts. So this video is mostly going to be about concepts and also practical. So to create a new folder, right, here is my I'm going to close these files, right? So to create a new folder, I want you to click on this second icon here, and then we'll name this 04 dash. So we're just going to call this a simple name, just call this string methods, right? Alright, so once that's done creating, I would love you to open this folder by clicking on it and then create an index.html file. After creating your index.html file, I would love you to hold down shift and number 1 and click on enter. So that creates our boilerplate for us. Just name this string methods. Right, I might create another folder for different ones. So let me change the name of this string methods so that will not cause any confusion. Let's just call this data types methods, since we're looking at most of the data types and their methods in depth in this video. Alright, so let's create a simple div and an h1 which says data type methods. Alright, so now let's create our script.js file, which is our JavaScript file. Okay, so now that I've created our JavaScript file, we want to link it to our HTML. So we'll do that in the body tag, and then just come here and create a script tag, and then put an src accessing the script, right? So now that is that. Remember that you can always access other script files even outside of this folder. So to do that, in command prompts there's something known as directory. So just double come out, and then you can see all the other folders. You can select the one for this data structure, but one. Okay, now let's run our HTML. I'll open my Chrome browser. Alright, so now that I have my Chrome browser opened, I'll put this to the left and this to the right. Alright, so now that's that. I'm going to be opening it by right clicking and then clicking on open with live server. You don't have live server installed, here's an extension. Just come here to extensions and type live server, right? Live server. It's going to bring out this particular one for you. By retrieve day, install it and you have it working for you. So now we have data type methods, right? Okay, so I'm going to right click on this web page, cancel this new one, right click on this web page and inspect. So to inspect is basically to see what's going on under the hood in your JavaScript or HTML file. So reload this and let's put a console.log showing that it is working. I put JavaScript linked, right? So we've been doing this in most of our videos. The best part about programming is to be consistent with whatever you're doing to avoid confusion. So JavaScript linked, and you can see it's showing up here. Alright, so what are data types in JavaScript? So I'm not going to be wasting your time discussing what we've covered, but I'm just going to continue from where we stopped. Let's go to the where we explain data types. Alright, so let's just come here. So data types are basically we defined it as a way that data is represented, a way by which different data in JavaScript are represented. So now, without wasting any much of our time, let's just look at the string data type, right? So the string data type defines values, numbers, letters, symbols. It's also known as a collection of string values, right? Within a double or single quote. So we're going to be creating a simple string here. So I'm going to call this a constant, right? We don't want it to change. So we're going to say simple string, right? And the name, we're going to give it a text. So this is what we use to create a string. So we'll say this is a string data type value, right? And then if we console.log simple string, we'll see it on our console. Alright, so now this is a string data type value, right? Obviously we already know how to do this, at least from the last 3 videos. We already know how to go about this basic JavaScript code. So now I want to look at the methods, string methods. So let's put a comment, methods in string. So what are string methods? Now if we go back to our last 2 videos where we talked about data structures, still in this same series, this particular video, we talked about data structures. We spoke about objects, right? The object is an item that has properties, and part of these properties are methods. They have behaviors, right? And we also covered that arrays are objects. I want to let you know that string is also an object. So let's just do this quickly. I'm going to set type of and then string, right? As we have the array constructor, we have this. So now this is a function that is used to create a string, right? But if you look at it very well, this string has its methods, right? It has its methods. So let's access the methods available to simple string. So simple string dot. Now these are string methods, right? These are string methods. A method is basically function that can be performed on a particular object, right? So basically anything that has a method, any particular data type that has a method is an object, right? So just get that clear. Let's put that here. Yeah, the data type might be string, but it's an object because it has a method. So any data type that has a method is an object, right? So basically an object meaning it can be used to access and manipulate a particular object. So let's look at the first 3 methods we have. Okay, let's look at the common ones. We have a property named length. If we check the length of the simple string, let's console.log this, right? So you might ask yourself, why do we want to use string methods? What are they used for? Well, there are some very basic functionalities in JavaScript that requires you to make use of some. They're just some very basic functionalities that will require you to write some extra code. So instead of writing those extra code, an example of it is actually, for example, you want to replace a particular value of a string. So let's look at our simple string. Let's say I want to replace h in this simple string with I and say TIIS. What can I do? Let's first console.log the length. So we have 32 characters in this string plus the space values, 32 characters here. So let's look at the other one. So I'm going to console.log simple string so that it can show on the browser console dot replace. So now look at it very well. When you're replacing, this is a method. A method is a function, right? So you have to pass in arguments, and you should always make use of this in VS Code. It shows you the explanation of the method, right? So the search value, basically the search value is a string. The search value is that particular letter, not the index. The index is the position, right? And the position is basically where it is here, and it starts from 0 according to what we covered in arrays, right? So basically this video is building on what we've learned. So if you are a little confused, I'll leave a link in the description below leading you back to the second video, because it's important you understand these things step by step. and sequentially. So now look at it very well. So we want to replace h in this particular um string. So we can put h, right? We can put h, or let's put the position first. If we put h and then put the replace value to be I, now you can see that it has actually changed, right? You can see that we've gotten what we want. We wanted to replace h with I, and basically imagine if you had to do this from scratch by yourself. You have to start writing functions, writing a lot of codes. So basically these string methods have been written for us already to perform basic tasks like this, for replacing a string value rather than you writing this from scratch. That's the advantage of using string methods. So let's look at more string methods. All right, we're looking at about 5 more, and then I'll leave a link in description below to lead you to more of the string methods so that you can practice on them. So this one now we're going to be using another string method. All right, so the next one I'll be looking is split. So split is a very common string method basically that is used to split your strings basically into substrings. So basically substrings are, from the name sub, they are strings inside a string, right? So let me just give you an example of a substring. So you have a string named umbrella, right? So you can also have another string inside the string named rela. So rela basically is another string inside the string. So this is our substring. This is a substring inside the string, right? So that's what substrings are. And you can see now we splitted it, right? We splitted it, but this is not what the splits. This is not how we should split our string. Let us split it in a way that um each of the words are different string items, and the split method, this split method converts the string into an array of string sentences in an array of string words in a string sentences. So without talking too much, let's just go straight into action. If you read this is actually very useful that you read this. An object that can split a string splits a string into substring using the specified separator and return them as an array. An array being a collection of list items, a collection of items. Put a space. Okay, now it has given us what we need. So it's not giving us a comma per se, so we just paste it. So let me explain this string method to you. All right, so this is string, simple string dot split, and then we're stopping at 10. Let's remove this 10 and see what it gives us. It's still giving us the same thing. So we have 7 words inside the string. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So these are 7 words inside this particular string. So when we say split, so we're splitting the string. What are we using to split them? I put a space. So imagine if I just put a comma, it won't actually split them. Imagine if I put a dash, it won't split them, but I kept a space and it is splitting them, right? So it is splitting this from this, this from this from this, until it becomes an array. So you can see now we can also store this particular array that we splitted from the string into a variable. That's the point, and that's the benefit of using string methods. You can manipulate the string in such a way that you can store copies of the manipulated form of that string in a variable. So I'm going to call this const, since I'm not changing it at all. I'll say splitted string, right? And then equal to this, and then console.log splitted string, right? Splitted string. All right, so basically this is splitted string. So if we console.log simple string again, to still give us the original value. So that's the benefit of using this. They don't modify the exact string, they modify the manipulated copy, and that's what you can store in a variable. So if I print out this, even after this, because JavaScript is synchronous, you can see that it's still giving us the normal value that is not splitted. So let's look at another string method, and then we go into number methods, right? All right, so now string methods. Another method that we're going to look at, let's just put comments. We call this property, and then colon length to check the amount of characters. This will call this method, we'll call this replace, and then we'll call this split method, we'll call this split. Alright, so these are the methods that we looked at so far, just two. Another method that we'll be looking at, let's look at simple string dot, alright, trim, right? So basically what this method does is that this method actually allows us to remove extra white spaces. What are white spaces? Let me create a string and give you an example. So we have a string that has so many spaces like this. For example, a user, you're collecting data from a user, his username, and he's putting so many spaces, and then he puts his name. So instead of storing this rough and ugly looking data in your database, you can actually trim it. And to trim is basically to remove all the white spaces and store it properly. So let's create a variable called const username, and give this username a variable value of James, and then give a space, and then put bond. So this is how username is. If I console.log username, it will give me exactly the way James is, right? It will give me that extra space, which is what we don't want. Who types a username like this? We don't want this in our database. So before it gets to our database, we want to trim it. So to do that, we'll just say, so if we trim this, you see that it's going to give us that particular, you can see that it's still giving us the space in the middle. Why? Because this trim actually only removes the white space at the beginning of a string, but we want to get this middle part. What are we going to do? So now we're going to now select that first sentence and then trim the remaining part of it. So how can we do that? So what we're going to do is we're going to actually split James and Bond, right? And after splitting it, we'll trim it. So to do that, we just say username dot split, and then we'll give it a separator as we did, which is the space. By console.log this, let's see what it gives us. Alright, so you can see that it's giving us all those whole extra space. James 1, 2, 3, all those spaces are array elements, right? But we want to trim them. So what are we going to do? So let's store this split. So we're going to call this const splitted username, right? And then from splitted username, that's what we're going to now trim. Alright, splitted, since it's an array already, user splitted username dot trim. Alright, so it doesn't allow us to trim it, right? But we can select the first element. So we spoke about arrays and indexes. This is an array already, right? This is an array already. So we want to remove all the elements that have extra space in this array. So what we're going to do, we're going to say we're going to select this. Actually, we can use, okay, we're going to select the first two elements, right? So let's select the first two elements. So we'll say splitted username, or rather the first and the last element. We don't need the spaces, so we're going to say splitted username, and then we select this. If we console.log splitted username at index 0, since we splitted it, right, we're going to get James, right? If we get the one at the 9th position, we get Bond. So turns out that we don't even need to use this trim. We don't need to use the trim method. But imagine if you had something like this, you have to use string methods to basically find your way out of that mess. So now we want to combine these two and this one. So we've removed all those extra spaces, we don't need them. So what are we going to do? Create a new string. So we're going to say const, I'm going to call it refined username, since we don't have those spaces again. So basically you can create a function to perform all of this, but even in that function you're making use of string methods. That's the point. The code would have been longer than this if there were no string methods. So what are we going to do? I'm going to say splitted string plus splitted string splitted username at index 0 plus splitted username at index 9, right? So that's all. I can cancel this, and if you console.log the refined username, we are going to get James Bond without any space. Alright, but now you can see that there's a space, so we're going to add a little bit, just this space, and we get James Bond. So this is what we want. This was what we will add. This is what we get by just some string methods that we used. You see that we first created this, and just by using split, we were able to get what we needed, right? Which is James Bond. So a function can actually do this, and you get your result, right? So basically, that's that about the JavaScript split method. So let's look at one more before we move to the next. So we call this third string, or let's call this name of school, right? Name of school. So we'll put Cambridge, and then we'll Cambridge. So the way you get used to string methods is by practicing with them, right? So we're going to say name of school. So let's look at another string method we can look at here. Okay, we'll be looking at concat. So what does it mean to concat, right? What does it mean to concat? I said I was going to leave a link in the description leading into like a note where you can learn more about string methods. So we're looking at only a handful in this video. So concat, basically concat means to join together. Concat means to add together. When the reason is you're not adding, you're just joining together. So the full meaning is concatenate, and that's what we did here. We basically concatenated this splitted username at index 0 plus the space plus the splitted username at index 9, right? That was what we did. Basically, that was what we did. Alright, so now for us to concatenate this, let's create another string, right? We'll just say const university, and then we'll give it university value. So we want to concatenate Cambridge plus university, right? Cambridge plus university to give us Cambridge University. So we're going to say concat name of school. So this is how it goes. The string, then dot concatenation, concat, then the string you want to join with that string that you called the concat method on. So we want to join university to name of school. So we'll say name of school dot concat, then in brackets university. So that's that. You can concatenate more than one. So university. If you console.log this, we're going to get Cambridge University. So there we go, Cambridge University. The only thing is that there's no space. So what if I add a space here? It's still going to give us that same stuff. So we can actually concatenate a space, right? And then you can see now Cambridge University. You can see Cambridge University, where it's giving us that weird stuff that it brings it, because it's looking at this as a new line. But you get the point. We've concatenated two strings, right? So let's just put a comment and move on to the next data type. So the rest of the remaining methods are actually easy to understand if you practice them. As I said, I'll be leaving a link in the description below leading you to notes about them. So let's just put here we put method. We try to trim it here, right? We wanted to trim, and what does trim do? Basically removes white spaces, removes white or extra spaces from the beginning of the string, right? So that's all. And this one is basically using the split method to remove white spaces, basically, right? Imagine if you, so a string method that does not, if there's no string method that can do a specific task, you can use other string methods, combination of them, to get that particular result, which is what we just did. We used the split to trim, and then we added them together by concatenating it. All right, so now let's look at the number data type and its methods. So creating a lot of numbers, I'll be looking at arithmetic JavaScript, right, in this number, and then we look at boolean, and then we can say that's the end of this video. So now number data type and its methods. So let's look at it real quick. So we'll create age, we'll say 18, we'll create const time, we'll give it a time of 1700, which is 5 o'clock in the evening. We'll give it date of birth. I'll give it 2008. Alright, so that's that about that. Let's look at each of the string methods from this, each of the number methods from this. So let's look at age dot. So now we just have a few number methods. Why? Because numbers, you don't need to manipulate numbers. You only need to either round them up, round them off, convert them to decimal, convert them to string, and do all those things. So the number methods are not much. There's something we call to fixed, and to fix basically gives us a fixed number of values. What does this mean? Let's read it. Number of digits after decimal points must be range of 0 to 20. So imagine if we had a decimal. So age is not a decimal, but let's give it 18.66666554444. So you obviously you can get values like this, especially if you're building a calculator now, you can get values like this. How do you make it? How do you format it so it will not display all those values? This is the string method. This is the number method to use. So age, we can put something like 10, right? So 10 is going to give us the first 10 values. So let's console.log that. All right. So we get the first 10 values. Let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So basically that's what it gives. If I change it to 2, it gives us the first two values, right? So basically if you are building something like a calculator or a student management system or any of those things that mixes of numbers and decimals and all those things, like a finance tracker or something, using methods like this would really be helpful. So let's look at another method. So let's look at time, right? Let's look at to exponential. So let's read what this does. Number of digits after decimal points must be 0. So exponential is similar to fixed, right? It's just that exponential allows you to represent number in an exponential notation. Well, I've not used this so much, but let's still look at it. So time dots, let's give it 5, right? And let's console.log this, see what it gives us. All right, so now you can see that it has represented this particular 1700 in exponential. If you've used natural display calculators or even the normal one, you see that there's something like this where you see this e, meaning it is exponential, right? It's continuous, it doesn't stop, it keeps growing. So basically that's the exponential. Let's look at another one before we move on to boolean. So now time dots to exponential. Let's look at another one. So we're looking at date of birth, right? Date of birth, and then to precision. So let's read what precision does. So precision, basically this one returns a string containing a number represented in an exponential of fixed points with a number of digits. So precision is basically more accurate, right? We're not saying we want this to be fixed. We're not saying we want this to be exponential. We're saying we want this to be either fixed or exponential, any one you want. So let's give this a value of 4. I know I might not be explaining this well because I've not really used these methods deeply. The one I've been using mostly is the fixed, but it's important we still look at them regardless because we'll need them for the mini projects we'll be building. So you can see it still gives us 2008. Imagine if I put 2008.556, and you can see it has given us 2009. So precision is like you're rounding up. All right, so precision is you are rounding up. So you have something like const, let's call this level reading. In physics we have something called reading. Level reading is equal to, let's say, 5.689. obviously it's going to give us 6, but let's say that you want to round this up, right? You're building a math application that helps students with calculating their readings, or a physics application that helps them with their practicals. This method is going to be very useful for you when you are building such application, so that when they want to round it up, it helps them. They don't have to be seeing the whole long decimal point. So I can say level reading. Okay, let's leave this one and create a new one. We'll say console.log level reading dot to precision, right? To precision, and then this we can give it a value. We just want to round it up to decimal places, right? 5.7. So two decimal places gives us 5.7. If we say 1, it gives us 6, right? It gives us 6. Why is it giving us 6? One decimal place, right? One decimal place. So we are not saying, look at it very well. This is 5.6. If we round up the first decimal, it is obviously going to give us 6. If we round up the second one to give us 5.7, because 6 is higher than 5. If 6 is higher than 5, if we round up 9, it will give us 5 point, that should be 5.7. Let's round up the third one. Sorry, 5.69, because round up 8, but we want to round up the whole stuff, so we'll give it 6, right? And I can duplicate this and 2 3. So basically that's that about precision. So let's just put a comment here. Fixed gives us just the decimal points we want. Gives us the decimal points. Exponential gives us the decimal points in exponential format, right? And then we can put in brackets E format according to the calculators that we've used. And if you've not used one, it's your chance to try one, because calculators are smart devices. Every single mobile phone, even programming languages, are calculators. We'll be looking at that after now. So precision gives us the rounded off, or rounded up. It should be rounded up. Alright, rounded up value of our integer, right, based on the decimal place. So that's what precision does. Alright, so we looked at the very simple. We can also find out this. Let's try this level reading dots. Alright, there's nothing like the length in numbers. So let's look at quickly arithmetic operations in JavaScript. We're doing this because we're looking at number methods, right? So we have different types of arithmetic operations in JavaScript. The first one is addition. So you can literally add, you can do maths in JavaScript, right? It's a console, it's a programming language. So let's add 2 plus 2 and console.log this. So we console.log in everything. We'll get 4. Let's add 1.63 plus 6.85. 1.63 plus 6.85 plus 9.32. Alright, so we're going to get whatever 17.8. So let's look at another one, subtraction. So let's just do simple subtraction here. Let's say minus 8 minus 2. Let's space this out. Minus 8 minus 2. Let's console.log 30 minus 16. 30 minus 16. And let's console.log 48 minus 3.78. 48 minus 3.78. Alright, so now you can see that it has given us all those values. So we also have multiplication. So you can do as many maths as you want to. Let's console.log 2 times 4, which you know is 8. So the multiplication is asterisk 2 times 4 asterisk. So just look for asterisk on your keyboard. On mine it's shift and 8, which gives us the asterisk. By console.log you can see 16. Let's console.log 48 times 82, and then a decimal one, 9.63 times 4.88, right? And then we get this. So that's that. Now let's now convert this value that we get. Let's convert it to something else. So I'm going to wrap this up. You can wrap it up like this. If you don't store it in a variable, you can just wrap it up like this and put dot to You can see it's a number. We want to round it up. So let's round up the first decimal place. Give us 47. Okay, it's not giving us 47, it's giving us something else. I wonder why it's doing that. So let's round up the second. Let's see. 47. Okay. One gives us this 247. All right. So that's that. And there's also division, right? So those are the basic arithmetic. Division. So we can say console.log 5 divided by 3. So it's forward slash, right? Console.log 16 divided by 8. Obviously get 2. And console.log 1.5 divided by 7.3. So that's about that. So that's what we're getting. So that's that about arithmetic operators. We also have different advanced arithmetic operators. I won't call them advanced, but they can be used. So you can do things like raised to power of, raised to power of. You can do things like exponential. You can do things like modulo, modulus, things like that. So let's look at them quickly. So raised to power of, and you can do BODMAS too, depending on how far you want to go, right? So raised to power of, I can say console.log. So there's something called the caret symbol. This is a caret symbol. It used to represent when you raise something to the power of something. So that's what the caret symbol is used to represent. So we'll say 40 raised to power 2. Right? We're going to get 42. No, that's not what we want. Okay, sorry. I'm so sorry about that. It's not the caret symbol, it's the asterisk. So basically this is it. Double asterisk is to raise something to the power of something. So let's do another one. 5 raised to power 2. 5 asterisk asterisk 2. We'll get 25. Let's do 3 raised to power 2. Right? 3 raised to power 2. Alright, so that's about that. Let's look at exponential. Exponential is basically still the same thing as raised to power of. Let's look at modulus, right? Modulus. Alright, you don't really need to look at all this so in depth, but when you need them, you can always read about them. But I'm just giving you a brief introduction to why string methods and number methods are useful, and also arithmetic operators, because JavaScript is a calculator as well. So modulus is like the remainder of something. So obviously when you do 5 modulus 2, you're going to get 1, right? So to do that, let's do this, because the remainder in 5 divided by 2 is 1. So 5 is 2, you get 1. So basically this is modulo. The percentage sign is modulus, right? Let's do another one. If you do 3 modulo 1, let's see what we get. Obviously 3 divided by 1 is 3. It is 0 that we'll get for this. Alright, so that's that about modulus. Alright, so let's look at boolean, right? Methods in boolean. Let's create a simple method. We'll say methods in a boolean, and after this we'll call the video a wrap. Alright, so methods in boolean. So the methods in booleans are not much, but let's create a simple boolean. Const, I always like using is logged right, and give it false. Let's see the methods here. You can see it's only value of that we have, and this value of the method, let's read about it. It says return the primitive value. So the primitive value, let's check what it is. If you console.log this, it gives us false. So basically value of just gives us, this method only console.log the value of the boolean. So that wraps up this video. In the next video we'll be looking at typecasting. We'll be looking at what it means to convert from one data type to another. And mind you, we'll also be looking at data structures in more in-depth and their methods. We'll be talking about more array methods, and we'll be talking about objects and their methods, or objects, and how to define simple methods for objects basically. So thank you for staying till to the end of this video. See you in the next.